What's going on, startups, small business owners, side hustlers everywhere? Today's Seven Figures Club podcast to help you join that 5% club of business owners that break seven figures each year. We've got a special guest for you today. Nancy is, by way of background, she is actually a certified e-virtual presenter and has experience designing programs for every online and offline delivery method. She leverages storytelling, very important. Every business needs a great story, and she leverages instructional design. The right design is going to make a big difference in terms of creating courses, which is what we're going to be talking to Nancy with today. She helps to create innovative and engaging training solutions. She has proven successful with a wide range of organizations and worked with global Fortune 500 to startups. She believes in the power of story to bring content to life and make an impact. She's also a wonderful speaker, which you're going to note in the next few minutes as you listen to her. And she's known for her dry wit, her sense of humor, and loves to say funny things in the moment on or off stage. She's skilled at designing creative solutions for software implementation, training, sales enablement, change management, performance improvement, leadership, and management development. Nancy, say your last name for us, because I want to make sure we say it right.
My last name is Giere.
Nancy Giere, welcome to the podcast.
There are over 32 million businesses in the U.S., and over 90% of them will never break seven figures in annual sales. So how do we as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs break into that seven figures club? This podcast will relentlessly share the secrets, strategies, and tactics I've used to create 3 multi-seven figures businesses and bring in even more successful entrepreneurs than me to share their inspirational stories and tactics to success. You can create your dream business and life right now. So buckle up and let's go.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here today.
Well, we always love to begin these podcasts, Nancy, with learning a little bit more about your background, what makes you tick, and most importantly, what are some of the experiences or events in your life that led you down a path of entrepreneurship and going towards the freedom that entrepreneurship can provide?
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to share how I really fell into the training business, because I think it can resonate with people. So many years ago, early in my career, my boss said, "Hey, you're a great communicator. I need you to train all these people in this new product that we're offering." Okay, sure, I'll do it. I had no idea how to proceed. And I went forward and I did it. And it was good, but probably not great. We got the job done, but I had no idea. And it took me a long time to do it, but I really enjoyed it. So I took another role in a company, and there we made courses for sale. This is back in the days of computer-aided instruction, when things were delivered on discs, if anybody even remembers what that is.
Back in the good old 90s, early 2000s.
Yes.
Some of us were there.
Some of us were there. Some of us were old. Some of us were young. Anyway, everything had to be done in a very systematic way, because it was all production, and it was almost like not a factory, but we had to follow a particular process to get it done. And I learned about this thing called instructional design. Had no idea there was a whole discipline and profession around what it takes to create a great course. And while I was there, I had a quality assurance manager and a direct manager that reviewed everything that I did. And the key line was, what can we do to make it better? So while that's going on, they also brought in one of the local universities, and we had graduate level studies in a lunch and learn format. So I'm doing the work, I'm getting regular feedback on the work, and I'm learning and getting an advanced degree all at the same time. And that really launched me forward and grounded me in this whole area around training as a real profession and a discipline. So fast forward, work my way up the ranks. I'm with a company, no sales for 2 quarters. So they laid off 25% of the staff. And I found myself, now what do I do? I've got 2 weeks of severance. What's next? And I thought, I've always wanted to start my own business. This is the best time to do it, because there was no downside risk for me. I wasn't, I had my unemployment. I was at the top of the scale, but that wasn't going to last very long. And I clearly wanted to be doing better than that. But it catapulted me into taking the leap into starting my own business. And that was back in 1998. And I've been working
So 24 years ago when you kind of got into this. And
it's hard to believe. Yeah.
Wow.
And I've done a couple of stints in and out where I've gone back and done full-time work, but kind of always kept my business as a side hustle. And now I'm really into it, full on. And one of my observations is when the pandemic came, everybody just kind of freaked out for all kinds of reasons.
Oh, yeah, for
but
sure.
One was a lot of people are like, well, what do I do with my business? I've been a speaker. I've been out on the road. Where do I go from here? So there was this rush to put content online. And it wasn't really well thought through. It was just, well, I got to get this out there because I got to sell something, right? So what we have now is a lot of really mediocre content. Completion rates are dismal because I don't want to watch an hour of a video of somebody talking at me without any interaction, any engagement, just yak, and not even, it's not as entertaining. And we're so tuned into, consuming content on a screen. We take entertainment, we watch movies, we watch TV, it's on a screen. And now we're watching things on a screen that it's like, oh my God, kill me now because this is just kind of boring. And I'm going to just fade away and multitask. So,
this is a really fascinating topic here. And so what's interesting is you've been doing this for 24 years. And I think really I want to say 2014, 2015, social media really started to gain steam. More and more, influencers and creators and so-called experts began to create training courses and content. And as you rightfully put together, I mean, I can tell you from our business, we had maybe 10 to 15 events that were canceled in early first and second quarter 2020. And so we had to completely pivot into doing virtual events, which has been awesome. But a lot of people not so fortunate in doing that. So as this transition to creating training content is put together. Now, the thing I like to compare this to is like when you're looking for a great show to watch and you find it and you're binging through episode 1 and season 1 and Netflix or Amazon or Apple TV or whatever it is. Like, when was the last time anyone ever said that about a training course? Oh, I just love this. It's pretty rare, right? So what are let's get right into it. What are some of the things that set apart a great course and a great course creation from those that 95% of people never complete?
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest elements in, the old adage, facts tell and stories sell. There's a lack of storytelling, and people feel so compelled to explain a concept when you can advance the action much more quickly if you tell a really good story, because the story is what's going to anchor then the key points. And if you tell a story, you've got the opportunity to ask people, well, what resonated with you? What did that make you think of? What was the key lesson that you learned? And I've been studying what happens on television and in movies more since this big shift. And one of the other elements is you notice scenes change very quickly. You watch, like, the camera angle changes. They go from a long shot to a narrow shot to a completely different view. And every time there's a scene change, that's triggering in your brain to pay attention, because what's going to happen next? So it's really being able to tell a great story and being able to change out what people are looking at. So a lot of times when I do a presentation, people say, man, you've got a lot of slides there, but I'm only on them for a second. And it's an image or an image and a keyword. It is not a lengthy PowerPoint list, or a bullet list, I should say, where people are like, oh my gosh, I got, they start to read it while you're talking. And when they read your list while you're talking, guess what? They're not listening to you anymore.
Amazing stuff. So facts are cute. Everyone likes facts, but it's the story that we remember around the facts. So in your training, you've got to incorporate more stories.
Yes.
And then in your training or any of your content, because you've got training, but they just as important in today's world is you have to be putting out regular content and, learning from great content creators out there like a Gary Vaynerchuk. And you need to figure out, what are the platforms you're going to be doing on? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it LinkedIn? And then, how are you creating content? And you're giving the same lesson, right? Are there any differences you feel between, your training course and your content? What are some of those differences that you should be aware of today?
Well, I think in a course, you're going to have a series of topics that you're going to take people through usually. And when you're posting something out on social media, it's usually just a single item. So it's more of a bite size. But the good news is repurposing, right? How do I take it? So if I've created this course and let's say it's a half an hour total and there's, several modules, 5 minutes long. Well, I can, choose to put out those 5-minute bites, or I can break those 5 minutes into smaller, because it's amazing how much you can really say in a minute when you think about it. If you set a timer for a minute, you go, I got a lot done in a minute, which is where TikTok and the YouTube shorts have come in, right? Because it's a much more, and people, it's like, we can't really focus for very long anymore. I don't know what's happened to us.
Our attention span is out the window, and it starts with our kids, and
it's like, there's nothing.
Yes. No, there's,
and then it's thinking about, what's the medium or the delivery that you're designing for. If we kind of go back, the world of entertainment, if you reading a book is a different experience from going to a play or watching a movie or watching a television series. And they all have opportunities and constraints, and we experience them differently. So you have to take your content and repurpose it, position it to work for those different modalities. You can have the same idea, the same story, but then you just, how I've got to adjust it because of the way people are going to consume it.
No question. The one thing that I think about here is when you're watching, a really great show or you're watching something on TV, they are trying to hook you in and give you a cliffhanger in between commercials or in between the first and the second episode or whatever the case may be. And so when you're creating a training course, what type of tactics or tools or thoughts should you be taking into consideration so that somebody, wants to get to the next course, the next video, the next segment, the next chapter? How are some of the ways that people should, put that type of strategy together with their courses? And then as a second part of that, and I think you're really alluding to this already, is, you see a lot of courses where it's 30 to 60 minutes for one video. I mean, it sounds like that's a huge mistake.
It's a huge mistake. It's somebody just said, well, hey, I did this great webinar. And a webinar is a different type of an experience because there's conversation, you're asking for questions, and people are in the moment with you. Well, when you turn that into a recording, it can fall flat. If people really want the information, they may stick with you. But if they're, if it's maybe I may check out. One of the things that I'll just recommend to people is use your webinars to get comfortable with your content, really be good at delivering it. And then if you have some parts of it that you can use the recording from, great. But if not, just go ahead and re-record it. And one strategy that I encourage people to do is when you re-record, if you're doing it by yourself, you can tend to be flatter and not as upbeat. See if you can get a couple of people to be in your audience so you feel like you're talking to someone. Like, we're in a conversation now. We're more animated because of how we are in this dynamic. But if I was just explaining this in a video, I may turn, into Ben Stein from Ferris Bueller. Bueller, so I'm dating myself here clearly, but
it's a great show. I love that show.
But it's challenging. In other part that I think has happened is, if we were sitting in a room together, I would only see you, but because we're on Zoom, I see you and I see me, and we're looking at ourselves so much that it's like, oh, okay, right? Is it all good today? And that can be very stressful for people that we're seeing ourselves all day. It's not the way human interaction has always been, where you're in a spot together.
Yeah, no question. So obviously, your content, your training has got to be much more shorter, more concise, still focused on the stories, engaging them to want to get to the next module, the next chapter, the next training. How are some of the ways that some of the successful ways to structure it correctly? Is it chapter 1 and there's 3 or 4 segments in the chapter, and then you go to chapter 2? What are the recommendations, or what have you found to be successful formulas in terms of the way you structure those courses?
Well, content will typically drive structure, and you may have a program where it's 30 minutes of content, and people need to consume that much content to really learn it. But the trick is figuring out, how do you break it into discrete modules? So you've got multiple topics, and within the topic, you're opening up with something, a way to get people's attention. So we talked about stories are a great way to get attention. You can do a quote. You can give some kind of a startling statistic, or some way for people to get people to lean in and go, this is going to be interesting. If you are a humorist, you can open up with something kind of funny, and that'll bring people in. And then it's really looking at, making you've got the way what people are seeing changes in terms of being on camera or having voiceover slides, that shifts. And it's about thinking, how can you come up with a great story and then go, and this is what this means. Or giving people maybe a personal reflection exercise. So I could tell an interesting story about something about starting a business. I could tell a story of maybe a problem that came up. How does this resonate with you? What does this make you think about? Are you experiencing these challenges now? So to kind of have them stop and reflect on what was said and come up with, how does that impact them? And then you can take people into, well, if you find yourself in this really difficult situation, here's some ways that you can work your way out of it. I have a story that I tell about, I had a government or quasi-government contract, and my business was really ramping up, and I was doing everything correctly, but it was sloppy, which could have put me at risk if I had been audited. And guess what? I got the call, I'm going to be audited. It was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because I got to shore everything up. I got to make everything so that there's no question that things are being done properly. But because of everything was okay, it just wasn't as clear as it should have been. And I remember, I'm on my kitchen floor and I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This could really be bad. And my little dog, a little corgi, comes over to me and he looks at me, and only a dog can look at you with just love and adoration. And he had a little rawhide chewy, and he dropped it in my lap, and then he just kind of went under my arm, and it was like he was telling me, you're going to be okay. You've got this. And then I just put everything into action to get the right people in. After that, I was like, okay, now I'm going to be okay. I've got to figure this out. I know I can figure this out. I've got 30 days to get it right. And I moved forward and I got it right. But I was at that point, I was growing so quickly that I didn't have my processes weren't keeping up with me. And I hit that point of tilt, which can happen. You eventually get to that point. I can't do everything myself anymore. I need help. So, if you talk about, when you had your moment of defeat, people can connect with that. And they're glad to see, hey, you had trouble too. You're not perfect. You're vulnerable. I guess, I can make mistakes too, and I can move on. So wherever it can go. So that's just
no question. I mean, there's a lot of hunger for authenticity and for realness, and no one wants to see, someone presenting, that everything's just gone perfect. Like, that's just not real, not human.
Right.
And so for a lot of the audience right now, they're listening. They're thinking of some different areas of expertise that they have and how they can turn that expertise, into a high profit courses.
Yes.
And they want to avoid the mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that, a new course creator makes? And, how can you avoid some of those common mistakes?
one of the biggest mistakes is because when you consume something, it starts with an introduction, there's content, and then it ends with a conclusion, that people want to write the introduction first. And you need to flip it. And you need to, as Covey said, begin with the end in mind. Look at the outcome. What's the place that you want to get people to? What's the gap between where you want them to be and where they are now? And then work through what's the journey that I need to take them on to get them to where they need to be. That's a huge, that's one of the big ones.
That's money right there. It's a value bomb, everyone. Take note there.
And another is that people will feel like that their content will work for everybody. And, there's some areas, sales, leadership, communication, everybody needs to do better in those areas, right? However, you need to target it to your audience. So it's their situation, their examples. So if, sales training for someone that is doing real estate is different than someone that is selling, HVAC systems or something. I mean, they're going to run into different, the process is the same, but this is again where the power of story comes in. What are the examples that you can provide that people go, yeah, that's what it's like to try to sell real estate. That's what it's like to try to sell heavy equipment, instead of this sort of general with the, platitudes where the only objection that's consistent is price.
Guys, some really big value bombs there. Let's kind of unpack those real quick. First off, you've got to be clear on the result you're trying to give someone. Someone is going to buy, invest in your training, in your course, because they want a result. And so being very clear in your sales presentation and in the training that this is the end result that we're looking to help you achieve, and starting with that. And then, all right, well, what does it take? What's that journey? What are the structure, and what do they need to learn and know to get there? And then as a second part to that, you have to be very niched down and niche driven. It can't just be a generic topic of expertise. Like, it needs to be very detailed, right? Like it's how to create a thriving short-term rental business in real estate, very niche down, not just real estate in general, right? And so two really big factors that you've just shared with us, massive value bombs. So now that you kind of got that together and you're kind of going through and you're creating, training that sells, what are some of the steps to follow to actually create training that sells?
Well, it starts out with, as we just talked about, having it be niche down.
Yeah.
So you're really clear. And when you think about it, your target audience for your training shouldn't be different than your target audience for your business, whoever they are, right? And then it's looking at who do you serve, and then what makes you unique? Do you have a unique spin on it? Is there something about, is it your background? Is it your methodology? You want to really showcase what that is. And thinking about, everything, doesn't matter where you are, what you're selling, whether it's a course or a service or any other service, what's the pain point?
That's huge.
People are in a particular point and they're not happy. And so you get the pain point and the transformation. And you want to be focused. If you're focused on the transformation and what it takes to transform, then people are going to stick with you. But too often it becomes too general. And I think if it can become boring, you're not holding my attention. I mean, that's it right there. If you can't hold my attention and keep me interested, I'm gonna move on to something else. Because the reality is, particularly I think in the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of stuff that's competing for our time. And we're going to make decisions about what action can I take now that's going to make a difference and to help me move forward. Is it going to be completing your course? Or is it going to be another activity that I need to pursue? And then, of course, we have the time waster that we have, because we can have all the social media on our phone, and there might be another video of Caruso the dachshund that I have to check out. It's like, I'm going to watch Caruso, or am I going to learn how to improve my situation?
No question. So, some of the audience may be out there listening and they've got a business that they're working on, that they're growing, and they haven't necessarily considered using online learning. So what is the case that they should begin to consider in terms of how creating an online course could actually really take their business to another level, whereas right now they might be stuck?
I've got two ideas. The first idea is consider using online learning as part of your lead generation strategy. Create some very short modules, drip them out to people, make it accessible on whatever your skill area is. So let's say you have a bookkeeping firm and you specialize in health and wellness. You could put together some real short videos about how to run an effective health and wellness business. Well, guess what can happen? Because you shared that information, when that person is, I'm at the point where I need a bookkeeper, I'm going to call her because, you know what? She gave me some great information. I think she really understands what my business is all about. Oh, another place where you can look at it is best use of your time. And I see this a lot with coaches. There's often a very lengthy onboarding process to bring people into a coaching program. Well, what if you took the information that is basic, that you say over and over and over again, and you put that into some sort of online module, and you tell people, I want you to go through and take this course, and I've got some paperwork that you're going to complete. And then when you're done, I'll review it, and then we'll have our first meeting. Saves you time, and it allows you to start working. Ton of time.
Huge.
It's huge. Yeah. You can work at a deeper level more quickly. So the choice is, do I want to bring on more clients, or do I want to have more free time? Right.
Well, you can do both when you have automated courses and put in place, because now that you created this course one time is doing the work thousands of times and saving you all that time, and yet still delivering maybe even better than you would on a regular basis, because you could put everything into that one course and that video by video clip. One of the things that we've done, and we've got online and paid courses and coaching courses and so forth within the business funding space. But for a lot of our clients too, we give out free courses. And that's been, like you said, this huge lead gen thing for us, because so many people don't know a lot about credit finance. They weren't taught it in school and college. And so we created this course called Credit College that we just give out for free. And so every event we go to, we talk on stage and, hey, get your free credit college gift, or you have this course and you just give it away for free, or you get to a point where you've delivered, and for whatever reason you just can't make this client happy. You're like, well, hey, I've got this $2,000 course. Let me give it to you for free as a way of saying thanks for being our client. Now all of a sudden that client was maybe not as satisfied in spite of all your best efforts. Well, now you've got this way to save it, and like, oh, great, I just got this $2,000 unbelievable course that's going to help me build and grow my business, get the result I'm trying to get anyway. And so there's so many different ways that you can benefit just by building it. Really is kind of a, if you build it, you're going to benefit your business big time.
Yeah. And when I did work in corporations, oftentimes the parts of the customer training became part of the negotiation for whatever the larger contract was. So they're working to bring in customers for a particular service or product. And as they're negotiating the deal, they say, you know what, we'll give you 10 hours of training to help your staff get up to speed. It's, it's built, it's done. It's kind of like it's high value, but it's not a big cost to me to make that as a gift to someone, just as you're doing. And so much of it is really to look at, what are you doing that is repetitive in whatever type of business you have? And again, like I said, what do you say over and over and over again? And that could be your first clue. Okay, that's something that I could extract out and turn into a course.
No question. Really good point. So Nancy, a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast, they might be working out, they might be driving. And the one thing we want them to do is we don't want them to be passive listeners, learning about an amazing topic of adding an online course as a tool for their business, for lead gen, for training. It's a way to double, triple their profits. What is, a couple steps that they can take? Where can they go to get more information to learn how to create amazing online courses?
Well, you can come to my website.
Okay. What's that?
And it's nancygiere.com. So for those that are just in listening mode, my last name is spelled Giere. And I have a download that you can get from there that's called 8 Easy Steps to Create Training That Sells. And it's a great kind of overview of what the process is and a great place to get started. And I'm happy to talk with anybody anytime to see what I might be able to do to help you move forward.
Unbelievable, guys. So if you're interested, and clearly if you don't have an online course for your business, you need to create one. There's so many benefits. We've created multiple courses here at Seven Figures Funding that has really transformed our business and helped in so many aspects with strategic partners, with clients, et cetera, with saving a client that you just can't seem to make happy. So go to Nancy Giere, that's GIERE.com, and click there on the website on the homepage to request your free gift from her, which is going to be 8 easy steps to create training that sells. It really is that easy. And there's just a few rules you got to remember. It cannot be boring. Keep it short and concise, and think about the result. You know what Nancy just taught us, the result that you want to give them by the end of the course. Start with that and then create the course that helps to give them that result. And then, of course, get some testimonials. Testimonials are super important.
Oh, yeah.
Testimonials of people that you've helped. And that's going to continue to, make it a powerful tool for your business. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for being a guest on the Seven Figures Club podcast. Again, guys, go to nancygiere.com, get that free gift. And the last word is yours, Nancy. Once they do that and they're kind of going down the path, what is maybe the next step that they should look at to get this course going?
Well, then think about how you want to get it out into the world.
And
there it is. I would take a look at what the different platforms are that your course can reside on, but don't pull the trigger and buy one until you're ready, until you're close to launching. I feel like a lot of the platforms are like the new gym membership. People are buying them, they're paying the subscription, but they're not ready to launch. So get an idea of how they work, know where you want to land, and about 30 days out, then pull the trigger.
Huge savings. You just saved you guys like $1,500 there. So
it's kind of like the diet industry.
Yep. That's a really good point. Great stuff. Well, thanks so much, Nancy. Guys, take action. Go to our website, get that free gift, and we will see you next time on the Seven Figures Club podcast.
Are you looking for more seven-figure secrets, content, or even how you can launch your own recession-proof business? Then check out sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7, FIGURES.com, where we share more videos, stories, strategies, funding solutions, entrepreneurial education, and even the secret business type that's recession-proof. Thank you for listening, and if you're finding value in our podcast, please give us a 5-star and invite others to join the club.